So many arts and cultural aspects do weave into occupation and meaning. I would love for the story of self-awareness, self-actualization, and environment as those two things intersect to be told as it relates to belief systems. Picking it up, what you're putting down.
Hello, and welcome back to the Unusual Creative Podcast. We're back for episode 3, and we're here with St. Clair Motley, who I would love for her to have a chance to just introduce herself, tell us a little bit more about what she's been working on and how we know each other. And then we'll jump into today's topic, which is the OT experience, as we've named it. So, St. Clair, please tell the people your pronouns and anything else you'd like to share.
Hi. Hello, Naya. I am she, her, and my name is St. Clair. I'm an occupational therapist. And I know Naya, she is my cousin. I love that for us. And so, yes, here I'm so excited to talk about how OT blends with some topics that you are interested in, and how our worlds can collide and how they do collide in the sweetest way.
So, just to get started and for a reference here, how long have you been an occupational therapist and how did you first get started?
I have been an occupational therapist for 4 plus years, and I got started it was the end of my first year of undergrad, college that I learned about OT, and when I heard about it, I didn't know what it meant in practice, but whoever it was that described they described it to where it just made sense. It just clicked in all ways for me. So after that, everything has been leading towards being an OT, and making it, relevant to just my daily life and my hobbies and my lifestyle, which it pretty well meshes with all of those things.
Yeah, I can attest for that too. It's very much in alignment with who you are. So I thought it would be great to talk a bit more about, in terms of that intersection between our two worlds, how environment on both a macro and micro level, how they impact individuals from a wellness perspective. If you can talk a bit more about that and maybe some examples of how it shows up in your work.
Okay, so how it shows up in our work, macro and micro level, the environment. Really, it's a distinguisher for us as far as, like, the disciplines of therapy, being able to identify the context of environment on those 2 levels, so it's very helpful for us, to be mindful of that, as it relates to the ability for people to do things daily. So, like a macro level would be access to resources, community design, accessibility, which I am so excited in the future to get into more. The cultural and societal norms, which is pretty fun to think about when you just think about your day to day, and your family. Really think about family. That's a good way to assess culture and social norms. Um, Back to asset access to resources, just living in a busy city versus living more on the countryside or in rural areas. That can be a lot of differences that impact what you do daily. And then environmental sustainability, so just how that's impacting your daily life, depending on where you live, who you are as a person, and then your body functions. Micro level impacts are even something that I love even more. I mean, I love it all, but micro level impacts are those like habits, routines, and rituals that I really do like to be mindful of. And so that's your home and work environments. That could be things, again, looking at your specific family and social dynamics, your routine, your structure, and then how you're using adaptive and assistive features to help yourself. So all things smart technology, AI, low tech items, which just might be a grabber for someone. It can be really expansive what could go under that umbrella. But it definitely shows up in everything that we're assessing and helping people 0 to 100 to use or be educated on or aware of to help them do things daily. So, yeah.
That's so insightful and honestly a lot to consider because um yeah, we all think about environment differently. We're all affected by it differently and the differences obviously make such an impact on how we show up and how our day-to-day lives are just different. I'll also you made a point or you brought up AI and some technology around smart devices, smart homes, um, which I can see how there are some cons to that, but it sounds like in the occupational therapy world that there might be some ways that your patients or clients, or maybe you yourself are already using tech forward modalities um, in sort of like your day to day documentation or, yeah, maybe other ways that you want to talk about?
I mean, you hit a lot, and you actually mentioned like, maybe the downsides of technology, whereas we do have a positive outlook on the impact of technology. So I think it would be cool to talk about both because nothing is one-sided typically. And so, like, I would say the key challenges and considerations that have come up, more in, like, in daily life, it comes up in the ability to play and imagine and have empathy, and also, like, in academia, it's coming up where it's just a lack of critical thinking again and just personal judgment that relates to clinical judgment. So there is a breakdown in just how we're making decisions, and that's starting at, like, a child level. I'm seeing it just in how children are playing, or more so how parents are playing with children, and then also, um, how children, adults, adolescents are learning how they learn and how they relate concepts and what they look to have, like, an internal check system. It's just a different it's so different. So that's the downside of it, and also there's really great sides of technology that I like when it comes to OT, and so we're looking at documentation, like you mentioned, having a streamlined process, being able to either, group people or outcomes or goals or caregiver education concepts based on certain keywords that we're putting in. Of course, meeting the client where they're at. Once we put in certain key information that can help us through algorithm and AI to come up with evidence based on the algorithm and information that they're collecting. It gives us outcomes that we can more standardized, that can help with rural areas where we're not able to actually see them in person. We're putting in key information based on online talking, gathering information, seeing things happen. And so we're able to give information quicker without actually having to be there. Um, and so that's on our side as the OT clinicians, the evaluation, even intervention side, creating hand splints that are like 3D printed, things like that. Um, but also the intervention side, so what the clients themselves are using. Um, there's a lot of technology that can really help them imagine, visualize, reduce pain, be distracted from pain, and just have more function overall.
And we're progressing so quickly. Um, so to think about ways that, as we've mentioned, AI, but also perhaps virtual reality or augmented reality, there might be ways that that can be hugely impactful um, for just like wellness, progress around healing, daily rituals, all of that. It can sort of bring another dimension.
Sort of.
That's pretty cool. Um, I'm curious if there are any wellness or um theater experiences, I'll just say like um that you've attended or been to that you think would be important for your clients or patients to see. Anything that is in the realm of like self-care and experiences that you could go out and participate in.
Yes. So you're asking about, like, those experiences that I would recommend for my clients or just patients. And yes, that we're talking about the environment, so it's definitely, we have to meet the client or the patient where they're at, the person where they're at, be aware of their resources, their ability to engage in these activities or go to these different, settings, and so that's always, like, my first answer. It really depends on the person. From there, generally, my approach would be to look at, the different range of sensory experiences, which is like the baseline of everyone's introduction to the world. That's just how we start learning. It's just our sensory experiences. So I would challenge or encourage people to go to places that challenge them wherever they're at in that sensory experience. So for me, I don't like roller coasters, but I would recommend that I go somewhere more high paced. So I would meet myself to go to like a wildlife excursion that has a little bit of something that would push me into that more roller coaster type situation. So like rafting, something where I'm just unexpectedly gonna be moved. That's something I would, recommend for myself, and for anybody else. Um, and then of course things specifically would be, spas if somebody wants to practice or indulge in more relaxation or, zoos or museums, whether you want more wildlife or more, humanistic elements, of creation. You could go to a museum or ballets or, football games. I mean, it really depends on the person. I think all experiences have value depending on the person and their meaning associated with it. Um, there's just so much, but generally, I look at the sensory experience because that's our basis for learning, for enjoyment, for just higher level thinking.
That's great to think about. And I also, in my mind, when I think about arts and culture and the intersection of, I guess, immersive storytelling, if you will, there is a world where people like to be in a game or they like to sort of like problem solve, if you will, as part of their entertainment, part of their mental release at the end of the day. Yeah, I can see a world where there is like a solid crossover of ways that um, wellness or like immersion around wellness or ways that you can sort of bring certain stories or certain experiences to a client or a group of people and just like, yeah, just see how they respond to it, see if there are ways that it can be modified for different sensory levels.
Truly picking it up, what you're putting down.
Yes, love.
'Cause it really is about who you are, and like you said, so many arts and cultural aspects do weave into occupation and meaning, and so to have the intersection of the AI in there, um, modalities like sound or, visual techniques, visualization techniques, that can all be interwoven and created in AI, um, outcomes, and yeah, I think that would be great. I haven't thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty and confusion and maybe fear around AI is just its potential. Like you don't know until you know slash experiment. But I'm finding that it can be sort of brought into the process and help you like brainstorm ideas and put together scripts and do all sorts of
And
things.
meet people that you have not otherwise met, as well.
Exactly. So something to consider. Well, if we could close out with one last question, would love your feedback and thoughts on any particular stories that um, you would like to see transform into content, like that you would like to see maybe in a film or a short format, or maybe it exists as an escape room or something that is like a interactive museum. Are there any stories or particular maybe even documentaries that you think would be great to see sort of transition into a different type of content, and then that could also be of use to your patients, clients, your team?
Yes, for sure, for sure. I have some characters, but they're
Oh, I
just
love that.
they're just they're there. They're just growing in the womb, if you will. Um, so they're there, and so for Oseean Saint Care, which is my business, and just the extension of all things self-care, I would love for the story of self-awareness, self-actualization, and environment as those 2 things intersect, um, the story to be told as it relates to belief systems, and I could see a cartoon, um, there's so many things. I definitely have the story that I would love to be told, more like lifestyle actualization, experiences, so retreats is something that I can see definitely happen in the future. It's a lot, and also it's really fun. I know I enjoy going to retreats, and so I know that will be fun to, create as it relates to the story. So I think that'll be fun. And just many other lifestyle products, honestly. And I say many, but really those that are of value and meaning to actualization as OC sees it, in the world and the characters see it, which it's all coming. It's all coming to
It's
life.
all coming. It's be as we speak about it. Yeah, it's in the process. It's in the womb. It's in the womb. I love that. Well, St. Clair, thank you for just being such a brilliant spirit, and also just bringing so much just thought to these questions. Because to be quite honest, I know like the framework around what you do, but I think questions like this and conversations like this always help me go, oh, okay, that's a little bit more helpful.
Yes, thank you for your time. I'm so excited. Number 3.
Number 3. Well, tune in for more. We'll be back with another episode soon. Take care.